Hello, my name is Nathan Sorensen. I am the Strategic Information Technology Procurement Officer for the Midwestern Higher Education Compact. Welcome to our webinar on Engaging Analytics, How Data Has Evolved at Sinclair Community College. Joining me from SAS today is Georgia Mariani. She is the Principal Product Marketing Manager for SAS Education. We also have our special guest, Carl Consdorf, who is the Acting Assistant Director of Research, Analytics, and Reporting at Sinclair Community College in Ohio. Thank you to both of our guests for being here today. First, I'm going to give you a brief introduction into the Midwestern Higher Education Compact, present to you some of MEX contract benefits, how we evolved into a statistical software RFP, and ultimately an agreement with SAS. And then Georgia will give you a brief introduction about SAS, while spending the majority of our time with today's featured presenter from Sinclair Community College. During today's call, if you have any questions, we encourage you to send them to us through the chat feature located in the lower left-hand bottom of your screen. We will do our best to address all of your questions at the end of the call. To help you understand our contracting authority and why MEC is involved with these technology contracts, it is best to have a better understanding about our organization. We are an interstate compact charged with advancing Midwestern higher education through interstate cooperation and resource sharing. The Midwestern Higher Education Compact is one of 4 regional compacts in the United States, with each having their own niche for addressing issues and advocating for higher education. Often referred to as MEC, our niche was rooted in cost savings programs created by and supported by stakeholders from the 12 Midwestern states. The compact is governed by a 60-member board called the Commission, made up of governor designees, legislative and higher education leaders, and also is a resource for student access, essentially trying to help students get into and matriculate through college, as well as a source in policy, where we attempt to help decision makers, governors, legislators, and higher education leaders in our member states make more informed decisions and provide them with information. MEC has agreements in place to extend our technology's cost savings programs to the Southern Regional Education Board, SREB, and to the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, WICHE. Currently, we do not have an agreement with the New England Board of Higher Education, and as the map shows, there are 3 states not covered by any of the compacts: New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. MEX contracts are competitively sourced solution-based contracts. We conduct open solicitations of requests for proposals following public procurement best practices for end-to-end solution providers. Think of it as one contract for a total solution with one purchase order. These solutions provide pre-negotiated terms and conditions by defining the scope of the offering, covering public entities' procurement requirements. It defines the business terms of the transaction, software licensing, and options for you to amend the agreement to meet your institution's needs. One of MEC's objectives is to create more competition amongst available contracts and vendors. Vendors often hold multiple public sector contracts, and by using MEX contracts, entities can leverage a request for quote to ensure the best value. We also attempt to shift the bargaining power back to the institution by providing alternatives. The sourcing process identifies and presents alternatives to drive price reductions with incumbent vendors or lower switching costs to move to a new vendor. In addition to the contract terms, the contract has an established price list with the ability for you to negotiate additional discounts. These are some examples of MEX Contracts benefits. Statistical software was a top issue for MEC Technologies Committee in 2013, and our goal was to negotiate a favorable agreement for students, faculty, and staff. Knowing firsthand the complexity of these specialized software solutions, it was also important to have a robust training offering. The objective of the RFP was to source software solutions to meet the needs for both higher education academic and business needs. We had a subcommittee of subject matter experts to research all of the alternatives and develop the business requirements of the desired solution. The committee published the RFP in the fall of 2013 and evaluated proposals in the winter of 2014. After careful review, the committee recommended awarding the contract to SAS Institute for their teaching and research and administrative statistical software solution. MEX Master Price Agreement with SAS is an offering tiered solutions with pricing based on the desired number of installs in your institution's full-time enrollment. Through our negotiations, knowing the importance of training, MEC was able to obtain a 60% discount on training. To leverage the Master Price Agreement, pricing, terms and conditions, ensure the contract number is referenced in the contracting documents and corresponding purchase order. The Master Price Agreement includes the required contracting documents for your reference. For existing SAS customers, you can use your already agreed upon Master License Agreement. For new customers, MEC has negotiated a modified Master License Agreement. The supplements are used to define the type of licensing and pricing for your desired solution. As with any contracting document, we encourage you to work with your legal counsel to make sure your order is in compliance with any governing regulations specific to your university or college. While all of the contracts are negotiated on behalf of higher education, when the opportunity presents itself, the compact negotiates to extend the contracts to K-12 as well. This contract is available for higher education and K-12 in the MEC, SREB, and MHEC compacts, 41 states in total. Now for some resources. Our MEC Tech website features a couple of easy ways you may access our contracts. When accessing the site, mectech.org, you may go directly to the category, for example, computer hardware, software, printers, etc. Or you may go directly to the contract section using the green contract button in the upper right-hand corner. It's also important to note that we insert recent news about contracts, RFPs, as well as upcoming regional and national events. Please also visit the section on getting the most value from MEC contracts to receive some valuable tips on purchasing products and services using this contract vehicle. From the software landing page, one can access the SAS contract. Under the software category, you can click on the specific SAS page. On the page, you will note some of the contract highlights as well as the contract terms and SAS's contact information. At the right are clickable links for contract eligibility, which takes me to the SAS website with specific MEC-tailored info. The SAS website includes information on how to obtain a SAS quote. Clicking on the Contracts link in the upper right-hand corner, you will find the ability to download contracts and their amendments and or addendums, plus the specific links to state statutes for the MEC region you are visible on the right-hand side of the page. Now, I would like to turn it over to Georgia for a brief introduction to SAS Institute.
Thanks, Nathan. I'm happy to be here today to talk about SAS and give you a little overview. SAS is the leader in data management, analytics, and agile business intelligence. We are the largest independent vendor in the business intelligence market. And through innovative solutions, SAS helps customers in more than 75,000 sites and 140 countries. We are also in 93% of the Fortune 500 companies, and each year we make a significant investment in R&D. Last year it was 23%. If you view any analyst reports like Gartner, IDC, Forrester, you'll see that SAS is a leader. SAS has always been committed to education. In fact, SAS began at the North Carolina State University as a project to analyze agricultural research. And SAS is utilized in more than 3,000 education institutions worldwide, and over 80% of higher education institutions, over 30 state education agencies, and hundreds of school districts. In our original discussions with MEC, sorry, my slide is not going for some reason. Sorry about that. In our original discussions with MEC, were mainly around the statistical software that Nathan had mentioned. But as we also started more and more having conversations, the importance of actually managing your data and preparing that data for analytics and statistical analysis became key. So thus our offerings now revolve around several areas. Data management, that you can see here with data access, data integration, data quality, data governance is key because that helps you prepare your data. Also, we provide analytics, so predictive analytics and optimization. And also data visualization, because you need to make sure that you surface that information visually and in a compelling way for people to use it. So data visualization driven by analytics really drives informed decision making. The key here is to make that information available where people can easily get to it and use it however they want to. So mobile devices, desktop applications, the web. With SAS, you're able to access and integrate your data across your multiple disparate systems. We're able to help you analyze it and turn that information into insights. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carl to discuss how Sinclair Community College is using SAS. Carl?
Georgia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carl Consworth. I'm the Acting Director for Research Analytics at Sinclair Community College. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our journey through data and data analytics over the last 10 or 11 years. So I'm kind of use more of a story approach. So the first thing I'll talk about is the setting. So Sinclair Community College, this is us. This is actually an aerial photo of our institution. But a little bit about Sinclair for those of you familiar with us. We're located in Dayton, Ohio. We are one of the larger urban community colleges in the country. We graduate around 2,800 students, issuing around 3,500 or so degrees and certificates, all with some kind of value, and service approximately 33,000 students. Fairly large, diverse. So some of the characters in this story, I'm going to talk a little bit about our department, Research, Analytics, and Reporting. So most higher education institutions have an institutional research. This is kind of our flavor of an institutional research office, but it is generally much larger than kind of the typical office that you would see. So The way that our department is organized is we have a manager of research, and this is what we would consider to be our institutional research arm. So these folks all do predictive analytics research, social science research, survey design, as well as moving into the area of visualization, actually a specialized position. Our tax grant, which is focused on competency-based education. We also have a manager for analytics and reporting, and within this arm we have, I'll start with our data quality analyst. This person looks to see how data is collected, or that it's done in an effective manner. We have a senior report analyst who oversees a lot of our compliance reporting, so things like IPEDS, federal reporting, as well as state reporting to the state of Ohio, and as well as surfacing any kind of reports that are needed for any compliance reports departments for. So coming back to our data collection analyst, so this individual here looks to see how, takes data that is collected in a survey format, paper-based surveys for mostly what we have is our end-of-course student evaluations, and taking all of those surveys and turning those into digital assets, digital information products, which then can be analyzed and surfaced in reports using the SAS technology toolset. And then you'll see the last arm here, other than the two managers, is the database administration, and this is really key to making the department work. We see that having the database administrators in the department really has positioned our department for optimal success, because without the quote-unquote the IT area, it would be very difficult to try to gain access to the operational databases. So these guys, there's two of them, they manage all of the data integrations between the operational systems and the data warehouse, and they also administer the SAS business intelligence reporting. Okay, so a little bit about a background about some of the problems that we were encountering, and probably I would say many of all of us see. So imagine yourself, I always like to start off talking about the desert island scenario, where you're on a desert island and you need to fulfill certain needs. So you have all of this water everywhere, but you really can't utilize it because it's salt water, so water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. So this is kind of a situation, to draw an analogy to that, is we have all of this data everywhere, but nothing to help us make better decisions. So why is that? Well, I always refer to this data pyramid as kind of telling the story of the problem with data. So this is something that you might see out of some kind of management information systems textbook, where we talk about at the bottom we have all of this raw data, and we try to turn that into information which can be used to help generate knowledge, which then can help eventually get us to the wisdom to try to help us make those optimal decisions. The problem that I run to in my organization is that the data pyramid looks more something like this. There's just so much more data out there, and trying to focus in and get those little pieces of wisdom and knowledge to really try to make a difference is really part of the challenge. And to also compound that knowledge is the fact that the data volumes that we are seeing are growing. So a lot of literature out there says that we are in what's called the zettabyte age, or even on that the yottabyte age. And those were terms that I really was not, even as a computer science background, really wasn't that familiar with at first. And so I wanted to just go out to kind of show what a zettabyte is. So this is visually what a zettabyte looks like. It's a 1 followed by essentially 21 zeros, but when computers, there's powers 2, but you can see that a zettabyte is a very large volume of large size of data. In addition to the sheer volumes of data, trying to gain access to that is also a challenge. So trying to get data and information out of the operational systems is a task. We use the colleague DataTel system. We also have numerous other system management for tracking Spartan card usage, which is kind of a card, numerous other data sources. Trying to get meaningful reports out of those out of a challenge. I mean, the picture here shows you just can't go up to a drive-through and say, can I order some data, please, and get it through a drive-through window. And that is because that IT is typically the owner of the data. So this is kind of what IT might look like, and they might say, well, in order to gain access to all of the data, you just need to follow this simple chart here, and it will show you where all of the data that you need in order to answer the questions you might have. Clear as mud. So this is also what I often refer to as the stuff that only I know for 500 Alex problem, because metadata or the tribal knowledge is buried and dispersed throughout the organization. And that leads us to the issue about asking questions. So when, for example, our president were to ask the question, what is our enrollment? I pose that question to 3 different areas: finance, IT, or registration. And as you can probably expect that initially that those answers coming back would not be consistent. So that was another challenge that we would have, that kind of taking the shotgun approach to gathering data. Moving on to yet a third problem was data quality. So we had issues for data quality, and not just being able to meet the definition of free of defects, that is, that it was complete and consistent, but that it also maintained that it had those desired features of relevant, of easy to read, and easy to interpret. Basically what we had found is that once reports were created, that if they were in a simple table, that maybe they were simple to us, but not necessarily simple to the faculty or the deans or the chairs. To kind of draw an analogy with data quality, we might show that a Volkswagen Jetta is a good quality vehicle. It was named a top safety pick, and I think most people see that as a good quality vehicle, but it doesn't necessarily possess all of the desired features. So in this case, this high quality vehicle maybe was not designed to handle all of the lumber that would be needed to remodel a basement or so. Maybe in that case, we would want to have more of a Mack truck to help us bring all of that information together, bring our plywood to our location. All right, so the solution, how did we overcome some of these problems? Well, the first one is we organized around business intelligence. So we mirrored what Gartner Group would call a business intelligence competency center, where we wanted to bring together the analytic skills of institutional research office, the IT skills and the technology skills of the database administrators, and the business skills or the process knowledge of the subject matter experts. So all 3 of these areas, and then some, are actually represented in the organizational structure of the research, analytics, and reporting. I should also note, I didn't note when I was talking about the RAR department that our office actually falls underneath the chief financial officer. So we fall under the finance arm of the organization, as opposed to under the president's office, the provost, or some. Address the area of data quality, especially around making sure that it was free of defects. We adopted an approach of essentially one flow of the data. So within the operational systems, there are data cleansing processes to make sure that the data is correct. We would load extracts and integrate that data into our enterprise data warehouse. and then do some external balancing to make sure that what we extracted and transformed and loaded was correct. We also do balancing because, not technical, but there's some things that we do, like some type 2 slowly changing dimension just to version all of the data. But in the end, we ended up generating information products. So these are things like OLAP cubes, reports, data mining models, whatever. And all of those then would be then given to the end user knowledge workers. If there were problems with the report, they would be validated by our team. And if there were specific range errors like dates out of range or incorrect codes, those would be notified back to the data owners and then fed back into the operational system. So for example, there was a missing code on a student. We also have automated processes, that's what this blue arrow indicates here, that as we are processing the data, if we do find ranges that are out of their domains, those would be kicked back to the data owners for correction. Programs are incorrect programs. We also moved to the vision of self-service decision support, and I emphasize this is much more of a vision than a reality. But nonetheless, we try to move towards self-service decision support where we have our business, our institutional, and our data warehouse, and we give them the metadata and the BI tools in order to access this data warehouse. So the BI tools, again, we SAS business reporting system. And then our metadata, or the data about the data, things like where the data came from, the business and functions of the data are stored within a wiki type of structure so that end users can look up this information and then understand some context about the reports that are being generated. If there are issues then or questions about reports or want to get constructed new reports, we have those report analysts which help facilitate some of those reports, and if need be, those report analysts also work with the IT operational teams to essentially understand the flow and the inception life cycle of the data. So continuing on moving out of reports, we continue to evolve and try to essentially create lift through the use of tools. So we've developed lots of reports and predictive models as well, but now we're looking to create additional more value through the reporting tools by using tools. So that is kind of essentially where we see the new SAS visual analytics platform playing in, where not just being able to surface a kind of report that end users can create, but a tool that can help the chairs perform their operations more effectively. And I'll give some more examples here in a little bit about what I mean by that. So what are some of the outcomes after we implemented some of these strategies? Well, first we created our reporting environment and our data warehouse. And it is now, after about 10 years, fairly robust, where we have areas of reporting from around enrollment, registration, and advising data, general ledger and finance, financial aid, our data out of our learning management system. And I was putting this together, I was trying to think I might need some more squares, because most of these things listed here are all internal data items to Sinclair, but we also have additional data feeding from outside of Sinclair. So for example, we have data from the National Student Clearinghouse that gives us data on subsequent enrollment on other institutions. We also have data from the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services that give us age information. We also have data from the Census Bureau to give us more demographic information. So we incorporate a lot of those external sources of data into our entire reporting platform. Here we pretty much have internally we have a pretty large warehouse, over 1.5 terabytes from 20 different that are all federated into our data warehouse. So some of the reporting benefits that we've seen, so compliance reporting and data submissions have been streamlined. Our iPads reporting was something that would normally used to take measured in weeks, almost could be measured in months. and now is measured simply in days to complete. And also we're able to go through and optimize and correct essentially some of our IPEDS reporting. We're able to do automated report distribution so we can push information out to the community now on a iterative basis. So for example, at the end of every semester, all of the faculty get a copy of their end of the course student survey results, which show them effectively how they're doing in their class from their students' perspective, but as well they can see how, looking at the quantitative results, they can see how they compare against all of their classes, against their department, and against the college as a whole. And this is generally with the reporting information that's been put out there, we can see that there's an increased visibility of data information. So people might have, in the past, the institution might have known generally where it stood on certain topics, like about how many students were enrolled or about how many students succeeded, but now we're able to surface a lot of that information, and so we know exactly where we stand in relation. So we might think we've done, for example, we've always thought that we've done a pretty good job around completions, but when we actually begin to surface and broadcast a lot of our completion rates, that there are some opportunities for area in student. So some of the reports and how we've grown over the time. We started off in 2005. We had about 35 users looking at 20 different reports. In 5 years, that increased substantially, where we had nearly 2,000 users looking at about 1,000 reports, and now we're about up to about 2,400, almost 2,400 users. But you can see our reports have actually dropped off a little bit, and that's because that as we found that reports were starting to grow, that they just started to explode, so that every time an individual wanted to report of, for example, their specific area, we would create that report for each specific area. So for example, we'd have an enrollment report, and then the aviation would want their own enrollment report, and life and health sciences their own report, and et cetera, et cetera. And we have over about 50 departments, so every report we had, we would have nearly 50 copies of. And so we had a lot of duplication of our reports, and some reports that aren't just being used anymore. Trying to go through and make sure that we clean up all the reports so they don't just continue to keep exploding. So that I usually don't like to spend a whole lot of time on the reports. I like to talk a lot about kind of where we've done in the areas of analytics. So I'm going to talk about 3 different examples here of analytics that we've done. So looking at our admissions to registration model, an example of using technology resource utilization, and then looking at online learning success rate. I'll finish up talking about a text mining example that we're beginning to use, and then kind of the last where I alluded to is the toolboxes. So the visual analytics is more of our creating the tools that we can put into the hands of the department chairs. So one of our first projects that we looked at was looking at enrollment and matriculation from registration or admission to registration to the census point. What kind of prompted this study was looking at one of our quote-unquote competitors was looking at opening a center near in the adjacent county to our service district, and we wanted to know if we were going to be losing enrollments to that area. And so in our initial study, we looked, we found that we really were not losing any of our applicants to that location. In fact, of all the students that applied, half of them didn't matriculate through to the census point. Looked at that population, 75% of those students didn't go anywhere. So 25% either came to subsequent term or they went to another institute of higher education. Most of them actually went to the local public university. But that left nearly this very large population of students that were applying to come to Sinclair but didn't actually come through. And so the tribal knowledge in which and the general thinking of frustration was that, well, a lot of it has to be around funding and finance. In other words, being able to make college more affordable. We're already the lowest tuition in the state, but still there is a cost of education. So, so we thought, we would make sure that we could ensure auto packaging, and that we could service all of our students, making sure they all had access to the financial resources. But when we took a little bit deeper dive into the data, what we found was that was not the case. What we found was the most influential factor in determining whether or not student matriculated through to the census point was test scores. So where they placed on the placement test, specifically the math placement test, and more specifically, if it was 2 or more levels below college level mathematics. So in other words, if students came in and applied and they weren't prepared and didn't understand how to do fractions and linear algebraic expressions, then they just kind of felt that they were not college material. And so one of the things that we did when we this was kind of an aha moment for us, because we knew that math was always a tough subject for a lot of our students, but didn't really so much talk about it anyway, or had a conversation about it as keeping as a barrier to access to higher education. So, so that was kind of, like I said, that was kind of a new thing for us. And then when we drilled down deeper into the data, basically that's where we found that that financial aid was the second most factor. So the finance was important, but it wasn't the most important factor. And then on the flip side, if the students did not take the placement test because they weren't required to, because they might have had placement credits or they were a transfer transient student, 6 or more credit hours seemed to be kind of like, would be that line in the sand that said whether or not the students were likely to. What were some of the things that we learned from this exercise? Well, again, placement tests were the most influential factor, and that this math at-risk population was a kind of at-risk group that we really needed to pay attention to. Financial aid is important. So some of the things that came out of this were, number one, we had a ARC, or a academic resource center, that was located all the way on the other side of our campus, and we moved closer to our admissions center. Instructed the admissions center area's staff to, if students had not taken or were not recent graduates from high school, our average student age is about, that they had to go to this resource center to kind of get a refresher on basic math principles. So I like to draw the analogy that as myself personally, but when students go to prepare for college or even prepare for graduate school, you have to take some kind of placement test like the GRE or the LSAT or something like that. And most individuals that I know wouldn't just sit down and take that test. They would go and prepare and to take that standardized test. So the same thing. We wanted to make sure that these students that were coming could take and prepare for this standardized test to kind of get that refresher on obtuse triangles, the quadratic formula, and fractions, which maybe everyday basis. That in place, and then again, as I mentioned before, with the financial aid, putting in the auto packaging. Now, as a result, when we put this into place, we were experiencing a decline in year-over-year fall term enrollment, occurring in the middle of our fall registration cycle, or at the beginning of our fall registration. Started this. Ended up at the end of the fall and the subsequent fall term, we finished 1% up over the previous year. So there were a lot of things that went into place, because there was also an aggressive marketing campaign, and there were some other strategies that were put into place. But I think that having and identifying this additional at-risk segment was also contributed to the success for higher enrollment during that. We've used an analytical approach even within our information technology area. So our learning management software that we had experienced some performance issues, especially when we were experiencing a large record volumes of distance and online learning. Essentially, it would grind our IT database to a halt. And so one of the things that we were able to do is marry predicted future enrollment in our online courses, the IT infrastructure utilization, and then the learning management software session information, taking all of that information together and being able to build a model that said, hey, when we get to this certain level, when we get up to this certain level up here, we're going to run out of CPU resourcing powers and we will no longer be able to service our students. And so this kind of information was used to drive the capital budgeting process. And the capital budget was immediately approved, and since then we have not had any issues with our database as in terms of being able to service our online students. So by making sure that we have adequate resources for our online learning community. Okay, so our online learning success rates. So here we wanted to look at online learning success. And so if we looked historically, we can see that online learning success has tracked about 5 to 6 points lower consistently over these last 4 fall terms here. Gap here. And so the idea that the pedagogy that goes online and in the on ground is the same, and so therefore we would ideally expect these rates to be more in line. We looked a little bit closer. We saw that our general education courses seem to do a little lower, while our specialty boutique and more of the career technology and education programs seem to do a bit better. So when students had gotten into their majors, they did a little bit better in their online classes versus the on-ground classes. We want to try to see if we could explain or look at why this was happening. So we started off in 2002 looking at primarily student information system data and found that historical GPA was a determining factor in success. So I know it's going to be a big shock, but those students that have a GPA 2.0 are going to be more likely to succeed than not. And so, yeah, that's like we know that students that did well in the past are going to do well typically in the future. So, but the key here is that the tool gave us an actual line in the sand, a definitive quantitative mark of 2.0. So that's where we were able to implement that policy. And so this is just some data here to show the performance of the success rate between those students that had a GPA of 2.0 versus less than a 2. And so that's why we had put that policy into place. And essentially, it had no effect. There were no effect on the so we ran the study again and looked, and again, still found that GPA was the most powerful predictor, but writing placement scores did have an influence, but no action was really taken because we didn't learn anything new. So then we did a new study, but using our enterprise minor tool set and our federated warehouse, we were able to expand the data offering to go beyond the registration. We incorporated data from our online student survey that is filled out at the end of the semester, data from our learning management system, usage, session length, etc., online success rates, and then faculty online course certification. And so when we did this, we kind of some more of the institutional research folks, but we did some decision tree modeling. We also did logistic stepwise regression and compared some of the models. We used misclassification rates as our technique for evaluating the performance of the models. And we ended up going with the decision tree model, which basically told us that, no surprise, but the number of times that the student logged in and viewed the online course in the learning management system was a powerful predictor of performance. So basically what we're saying is if a student is engaged in the course, they will be more likely to succeed. I'm sure that's going to be a shock to many of you that we uncovered that. But the thing that was really learned from that is, again, we kind of had this line in the sand. If they logged in at least 20 times during the semester, during the learning period, that was kind of at the tipping point in which we knew that student was going to be positioned. And in fact, if they logged in at least 3 times during the first week and at least 1 email, they were going to be positioned marketably more successful in the online course than those that did not connect. So what we were able to do, we created a process to monitor these student intervals and then provide notification of when those students had not, and automated email generations to the faculty indicating when the student hasn't logged in to the system. Now this is kind of where our process has run into a bit of a minor roadblock where identifying the resources that's going to be used to contact those students has been a bit of a challenge because, you know, working out the policy of is it going to be the faculty that's going to contact students, is it the success center, the call center? How is all that process going to work out? And as far as getting that all worked out, those details have really yet to be addressed. But at least, you know, we've got that information in hand, and we know that we can position these students best in our online classes. Okay, so those are some examples of predictive modeling and predictive modeling. This is an example I'm going to look at text mining. So this is just a little cute little lay into to text mining. But one of the things that we did is using text analytics to look at job data from Monster and Career Builder. We were just curious to see what were some of the descriptions of job postings in the Dayton area. And so when we ran some of those postings through text miner, we were able to uncover things that a lot of employers are looking for. And one of the things that came up, which was kind of an aha, was security clearance. We live near a very large military base, and so security clearance was a very sought-after credential. But other things like teamwork skills and communication skills were also rated very high. So this kind of information fed into our annual academic program review as just kind of a data point to make sure that when we're offering programs that we emphasize some of those general learning outcomes. And then on a smaller scale, we did a couple of surveys and we were able to take qualitative responses from our survey from faculty about what they liked about our learning management tool and be able to come up with some of these concepts or themes from their semi-structured. So it kind of helps us be able to tell and add more analytics to the story that we want to tell. And another example here is looking at, we do a facility survey, and so one of the things in that facility survey is the conditions of the restrooms. And so it was just said that the restrooms are bad. Well, they're bad not because that they're dirty, they're bad because they're generally out of stock, which are two different things, and you can control those things differently. So those are some things we were able to uncover using some text analytics. So the last topic I'm just going to run into here is the tools. So the first one just talk about is our performance-based funding dashboard. Ohio, we have moved to 100% performance our state subsidy. And so this is kind of a snapshot of our model. We're funded on primarily completions and not so much FTE anymore. So using the visual analytics, we were able to develop some tools that allowed and surfaced the performance data by individual department and by different categories. So what this was able to help serve as is to start the conversation on looking at completion rates by different departments, by different locations, by different access category groups, see where some of our opportunities are. And this has led to a lot of conversations around looking at individual courses and the wide deviation of outcomes. So generally, you would hope that since all the sections of a given course might have a standard pedagogy and a standard set of course objectives, that they would have a pretty normally distributed set of student outcomes. But what we find is that some courses, especially like in our general education, I'll use sociology for example, we might have several sections that have 100% completion rates and then sections that have only a 30%. So the question becomes, what's going on in those high-end sections that things are going so well, and then what are some of the areas of opportunity in some of the lower successful that we can do to help kind of move the needle. And then looking at, again, more based approach for our visual analytics, managing classroom efficiency has been paramount in order to help optimize the use of faculty resources. So we've developed this tool, this average class size tool, which looks something like this. This is just the landing page, but there's behind this, there's a tool that will allow each individual department chair to be able to see all of their sections and all of their enrollments for their department and see what their impact is on average class size against their target. And then the tool will actually give them the ability to go in and make that comparison to see, okay, if I were to remove this section or add a given section to my department, what impact does that have on average class size? And then we've made advancements now in the tool that I can look at to say, what are going to be the impact on the students? If I were to cancel, let's say, a 6 o'clock offering of my English class, is there another English class, perhaps a 4 o'clock English class that's running at the same time that I could move those students into? And if so, do the students that I would be canceling, do they already have a 4 o'clock class? What are the current offerings of those students that are in the class that I'm looking at canceling? So it kind of really helps those department chairs see what the impact is on adding or removing sections to their section portfolio per se. So been a tremendous help and success in help managing classroom efficiency. So kind of where do we go from here? Where do we see ourselves going? Looking at more in the area of text analytics, looking at sentiment and polarity. Want to really dig in and look to see what kind of qualitative data that we can pull from there. Visualization, so being able to surface information in an actionable format, so that we can get the ideas. We want to make sure we're getting the right information in the right format to the right person at the right time, so they can have the most significant and contribution and the most significant impact on the students. And then a large project that we have looking at right now around course scheduling optimization. So instead of being able to roll schedules from semester to semester, being able to build schedule offerings based on student demand, where we look at where students are in their program pathway, their historical enrollment plans, and what's on their future academic, what's called their academic plan, and then information from the degree audit data, what courses they have left to take, combining all of that information together in order to build an optimal course schedule, and also to build section synergies between different sections and eliminate course toxic combinations. Building all of that together, even including things like faculty preferences, putting all of that together, trying to build a optimal schedule that'll be best for the students and best for the institution. So, okay, so that's everything that I have. This is my contact information, and then we also have some more information about a success story at the SAS website. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great story, Carl. Thank you for sharing. We do have a couple of questions. And Carl, we have a question here. What has been the biggest impact for you having the system?
The biggest impact? Well,
yes.
Well, I think the biggest impact we've had is I think being able to really raise that going back to what I talked about earlier, being able to raise that awareness and making that data and that information more visible to the institutions. So a lot of policies and a lot of decisions were made based on that's the way it's always been done, or I read this study that another institution on the other side of the country was doing, and so that's what we should go ahead and do that. So I think being able to look at our own data in this unique way and being able to uncover some of those nuggets and be able to surface some of that knowledge and wisdom to the administration and to the faculty have been really kind of has helped continue to evolve and transform Sinclair into a data-driven organization.
Thank you for answering that, Carl. I have one more for you. Do you have any advice for just getting started?
Do I have any advice for getting started? Yes. So I would say some things that would be, I think some things that would be real helpful to get started, would be one is I think you have to be able to block, let me back up. I think you have to organize for success first. So I think that was, I go back, before we had created our Business Intelligence Competency Center or our Research Analytics and Reporting Department, we had our institutional research office, which was in our operations center. We had an IT structure, which did the business intelligence, and then we had a third kind of a pseudo student services IT group within the student affairs division. And so all three of us were kind of working, we would kind of talk to each other, but we weren't working in any kind of synergy. And so being able to bring all of that talent together and manage it into one environment has been critical. I think that has been probably the most single contributing factor to success for creating the data culture here at Sinclair. Because we no longer look at data as an information byproduct from our operational systems. Whether we look at it more as a strategic asset of the institution. And so having a department which manages that asset, similar how you would have a human resources department manage your human capital, has really, I think those have been the things that have really transformed the organization. Number two would be what I consider blocking and tackling. So kind of drawing on a football analogy, I guess, but being able to do kind of the simple things well. Coming out of the gate and wanting to do analytics and complex predictive modeling might not, I would say you would need to make sure you build a solid foundation, get a good solid data quality, data warehouse put into place, and from there you can then beginning to build all of your information products, whether they're reports, compliance reports, analytical models, visualizations, whatever they might be, but being able to kind of start and make sure you have a good solid basic foundation. Most football plays, you should be able to at least run the handoff to the halfback to run up the middle. You got to be able to do that in order to be successful before you can start doing the flea flickers. That's kind of the way I look at it. So, and then the third point I'll make is you can't be a prophet in your own land. That is that we actually spent a lot of time trying to convince people that we were right and listen to us. We know what we're talking about, and sometimes, well, quite frankly, they just wouldn't listen to us, even though that we kind of knew what the outcomes were, what we were talking about. So what we had to do is we took more of a sales and marketing approach to kind of sell the idea of the analytics to the institution. And so we would find those champions out in the institution. So find that chair that really understands the use of analytics in the college, and be able to use that person to kind of help send our message and send the message of analytics throughout the institution. And I think that was also successful in kind of spreading the knowledge and spreading the word.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate your answers to these questions and providing Sinclair's story through their journey with engaging in analytics. I have one question for MEC, and the question is, what sets SAS apart from the other vendors for MEC with its statistical software RFP? And I hate to speak on behalf of our committee, but I think they would tell you what set SAS apart from the other vendors was the unique offering of both satisfying the statistical business requirements, but offering something very unique and innovative to the higher ed community to solve some of these problems and questions that Carl introduced to us today. Well, that concludes our webinar for today. Here are some additional MEC resources, including my contact information and, of course, our general counsel if you have any questions for Rob regarding our contracts. We also have our social media. Look for other webinars coming up in the future. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. You can view our other previous webinars. And until we meet again, thank you very much, and have a great day.